Sarah Chen walked into the Grand Council chamber with her head held high. The room was massive, with walls made of glowing crystal that reached up toward a domed ceiling. Hundreds of alien beings sat in floating chairs arranged in circles around the center platform where she stood. She was the last human ambassador to speak before the Galactic Council. After today, there might never be another chance. The air felt heavy with judgment. Sarah could see it in the way the Zephyrians looked down at her with their 4 golden eyes. She could hear it in the clicking sounds the insect-like Nixari made with their metal claws. Even the peaceful Altarians, who usually spoke up for smaller species, sat in silence. High Arbiter Veltar rose from his throne. He was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to glow in the chamber's light. When he spoke, his voice echoed from every wall. "Human Ambassador Chen," he said, "you are here to receive the final judgment of this council. For 300 years, the Galactic Council has maintained peace among the stars. We have done this through order, tradition, and respect for the natural balance of power." Sarah kept her face calm, but inside she felt angry. The natural balance of power. That was council speak for keeping the strong species in charge, and everyone else quiet. Humanity, Veltar continued, has proven itself to be a threat to this order. In only 200 years since first contact, your species has spread to over 400 worlds. You build colonies in places we consider impossible to live. You trade with species we have never heard of. You ask questions that challenge our most basic laws. A Nexari council member stood up. Its metal body gleamed under the lights. Humans refuse to accept their place in the galactic hierarchy, it said in a voice like grinding gears. They demand equal representation despite being newcomers. They compete with established trade routes. They explore regions we have marked as forbidden. Sarah finally spoke. We explore because we want to learn. We trade because we need resources. We ask for equal representation because we are equal beings. How is any of this wrong? The chamber erupted in angry sounds. Clicks, growls, and high-pitched whistles echoed from all directions. Veltar raised his hand for silence. "This is exactly the problem," he said. "Humans always question, always push, always want more. Your species has no respect for boundaries, no understanding of limits. You are like a disease that spreads without control." Sarah felt her anger rising, but she forced herself to stay calm. "We are explorers. We are builders. We are survivors. If that makes us a disease, then maybe the galaxy needs to be healed." The wrong words. She knew it as soon as she said them. Veltar's face darkened. "There it is. The human arrogance we have come to expect. You see yourselves as healers of a sick galaxy. You believe you know better than species who have lived among the stars for thousands of years." He gestured to a large holographic display that appeared above the chamber. It showed the galaxy as a bright spiral of stars. The inner regions glowed with the warm light of civilized worlds. The outer edge was dark and cold. "The Council has made its decision," Veltar announced. "Humanity is hereby banished from all civilized space. You have 30 standard days to remove all human presence from Council territory. You will be relocated to the Outer Rim sectors, beyond the galactic spiral arm." Sarah stared at the display. The Outer Rim was a wasteland. Dead stars, broken planets, asteroid fields, and cosmic storms that could tear apart a starship. No one lived there because no one could live there. "This is a death sentence," she said quietly. "It is what you have chosen for yourselves," Veltar replied. "We offered you a place in our civilization. You rejected it. Now you are free to build whatever you wish in the empty darkness." A Zephyrian council member floated forward. "The decision is final. Human colonies will be evacuated by council forces if necessary. Human ships will be escorted to the boundary. Any attempt to return to civilized space will be considered an act of war." Sarah looked around the chamber one last time. These beings had judged her entire species based on fear. Fear of change. Fear of competition. Fear of losing their control over the galaxy. "History will remember this day," she said. "Not as the day you saved civilization, but as the day you destroyed it." She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the council members began discussing the details of humanity's exile. They talked about transport schedules and border patrols. They sounded like people planning a routine cargo delivery, not the exile of an entire species. 3 hours later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the human flagship Endeavour. Admiral Marcus Torres was an old soldier with gray hair and scars from the frontier wars. He looked tired but not defeated. "All human fleets have received the evacuation order," he reported. 68 colonies are beginning emergency evacuation procedures. Civilian transports are being loaded with everything we can carry. Sarah nodded. Through the bridge windows, she could see other human ships gathering in formation. Merchant vessels, research ships, military cruisers, and massive colony transports. Every ship humanity had in council space. "Admiral," she said, "how many people are we talking about?" 47 million humans in council territory, Torres replied, "plus our alien friends who choose to come with us." Sarah was surprised. "Alien friends?" Torres smiled for the first time all day. "Turns out we made some connections the council doesn't know about. Small species who never got a voice in the big chamber. Independent traders who like working with us. Even some Altarian colonies that think the council went too far." A communications officer turned from her station. "Admiral, we're receiving a message from the council escort fleet. They want us to begin moving toward the boundary immediately." "Number?" Torres looked at the star charts. The journey to the outer rim would take months. They would have to travel through empty space with limited supplies and no friendly ports. "All ships," he announced over the fleet communication system. "This is Admiral Torres. We have our orders. Set course for the outer rim. We're going home." Sarah looked at him strangely. "Home?" Torres pointed at the display showing their destination. "The dark, empty region beyond the galaxy's edge. Wherever humans go together becomes home. The council thinks they're punishing us. But maybe they just gave us the greatest gift possible." "What's that?" "Freedom to become what we were always meant to be." The human fleet turned away from the bright lights of civilization and headed into the darkness beyond. Behind them, the council celebrated their victory. Ahead of them lay the unknown void of the outer rim. Neither side knew that this moment would change the galaxy forever. Dr. Elena Vasquez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she watched the atmospheric processor come online. The massive machine hummed and vibrated, sending clouds of vapor into the thin air of Kepler 442c. Around her, dozens of human engineers cheered and hugged each other. 5 years had passed since the exile began. 5 years since the Galactic Council had thrown humanity into what they thought was an empty wasteland. The Council's long-range sensors still showed only scattered settlements and weak energy signatures from the outer rim. Let them think that. It was better if they didn't know the truth. "Temperature is rising," called out Dr. James Park from his monitoring station. "Atmospheric pressure increasing. Oxygen levels are at 60% of Earth normal and climbing." Elena smiled. Kepler 442c had been written off as impossible to live on. The planet was tidally locked, with one side always facing its star, and the other side always dark. The day side was too hot, the night side was too cold, and the narrow band between them was constantly hit by violent storms. But humans saw opportunity where others saw problems. "The Twilight Zone is stabilizing," Elena announced to her team. "We did it. We actually did it." The Twilight Zone was the area between the burning day side and the frozen night side. By building massive atmospheric processors there, they had created pockets of livable space. Underground cities connected these pockets, allowing people to move safely across the hostile surface. Elena's communicator buzzed. The voice of Captain Lisa Rodriguez came through with the usual background static of deep space communication. "Kepler Base, this is the transport ship Horizon. We have 300 new colonists aboard, including 50 families with children. Are you ready to receive them?" "Ready and waiting, Horizon," Elena replied. "We have housing prepared and jobs available. Tell them they're going to love it here." It sounded crazy, but it was true. The people living on Kepler 442c were happy. They had good work, clean air, and something the core worlds had forgotten about: purpose. Every day brought new challenges to solve and new areas to explore. Meanwhile, in the Graveyard 7 asteroid cluster, Commander Jake Sullivan was dealing with a different kind of problem. He floated in zero gravity inside the command center of Mining Station Alpha, watching displays that showed the work happening throughout the asteroid field. "Commander," said his chief engineer, Maria Santos, "the council survey was wrong about this place. These aren't just random space rocks. There's a pattern to them." Jake looked at the holographic display showing hundreds of asteroids spread across millions of kilometers. At first glance, it looked like chaos. Broken chunks of metal and stone left over from some ancient collision. The council had named it Graveyard 7 and marked it as worthless. But humans had a talent for seeing order in chaos. "Show me what you found," Jake said. Maria manipulated the display, highlighting certain asteroids in different colors. "These asteroids aren't natural. They're the remains of artificial structures, ancient space habitats that were destroyed long ago." "Alien ruins?" Jake asked. "More than that. The metal composition is incredible. Elements we've never seen before. Alloys that shouldn't be possible. If we can figure out how to work with these materials, we could build things the galaxy has never imagined." Jake grinned. The mining operation in Graveyard 7 had become something special. Humans had learned to live and work in zero gravity better than any other known species. They built spinning habitats inside the largest asteroids, creating artificial gravity for families and workshops. They connected the habitats with transport tubes, creating a three-dimensional city that moved through space. More importantly, they had learned to think differently about resources. Where other species saw obstacles, humans saw building materials. Dead asteroids became homes. Empty space became highways. Even cosmic radiation, which other species feared, was captured and used as a power source. Back on the communication relay station, Captain Rodriguez was coordinating the network that held it all together. She called it the Outcast Protocol, a decentralized system that connected every human settlement in the Outer Rim. "New Hong Kong station reports successful trade contact with the Kythera," she announced during the weekly settlement briefing. "Apparently, they've been trying to contact other species for centuries, but no one could figure out how to talk to methane-breathing aliens." Rodriguez's assistant, Lieutenant Kim Wright, looked up from her datapad. "How did we manage it?" "Frode. Chem. How did we manage it?" "Same way we always do. We tried something everyone else said was impossible. Turns out the Kythera communicate through chemical changes in their atmosphere. Our atmospheric engineers figured out how to build translation chambers." The weekly briefings had become essential for human survival in the Outer Rim. Every settlement shared what they had learned, what they needed, and what they could offer to others. It was cooperation on a scale that impressed even the humans themselves. "Kepler Base is producing food surpluses," Rodriguez continued. "Graveyard 7 has new materials to trade. The research station at Pulsar 9 has breakthrough discoveries about energy generation, and the deep space explorers have found 3 more habitable systems." Lieutenant Wright shook her head in amazement. "3 more? That's 15 new systems in the last 2 years. Turns out the Outer Rim isn't as empty as everyone thought," Rodriguez said. "We just had to know where to look." The truth was that humans had advantages no one expected. They were willing to go places other species considered too dangerous. They could survive in conditions that would kill most other beings. And most importantly, they worked together instead of competing with each other. On the research vessel Discovery, Dr. Sarah Kim was studying something that proved this point. She had spent months investigating energy signatures coming from the galactic void, the empty space beyond even the Outer Rim. "Captain," she called to the ship's commander, "you need to see this." Captain Torres, the son of Admiral Torres, who had led the original exile fleet, came to her station. "What have you found, Doctor? These aren't random energy bursts. There's intelligence behind them. Something is out there in the void, and it's trying to communicate." Torres studied the data. The signals showed patterns that suggested language, mathematics, even art. "Are they hostile? I don't think so. I think they're curious." They've probably been watching the galaxy for a long time, but no one has ever ventured far enough out to make contact. This was how humans had always operated. While other species stuck to safe town-known regions, humans pushed into the unknown. They made friends with beings no one else had ever met. They found resources in places others had given up on. 5 years after their exile, humanity wasn't just surviving in the Outer Rim. They were thriving in ways that would have been impossible in the controlled, rigid society of the Council worlds. They had freedom to experiment, to explore, to become something new. Dr. Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Kepler Base, looking out at the sunset that painted the sky in brilliant colors. Tomorrow, they would break ground on a new city. Next month, they would finish the orbital station that would serve as a jumping-off point for further exploration. The Council had thrown them away like garbage. But humans had learned something important about garbage. In the right hands, it could become treasure. Her communicator buzzed with a message from Captain Rodriguez. "Elena, we just received word from the Deep Space Scouts. They've found something incredible at the edge of the galactic spiral. A region rich with rare elements and perfect for large-scale construction projects." Elena smiled. "Tell them we're ready to expand. We have 50,000 new colonists ready to move to wherever the frontier calls." The Outer Rim was no longer humanity's prison. It had become their kingdom, and they were just getting started. Captain Maria Santos guided her merchant ship through the docking bay of New Hong Kong Station. 20 years ago, this had been nothing but empty space and scattered asteroids. Now it was the largest trading hub in the Outer Rim, built inside a massive hollowed-out asteroid that spun slowly to create artificial gravity. The docking bay was busy with activity. Ships of all sizes moved in and out, carrying goods between human settlements and their new trading partners. Santos could see vessels she would never have imagined 20 years ago. Kythera ships that looked like giant bubbles filled with swirling gas. Shard collective craft made entirely of living crystal, and sleek vessels belonging to the energy beings from the deep void. "Welcome to New Hong Kong Station," came the voice of the docking controller. "Please proceed to Bay 47. Customs will meet you there." Santos smiled. Customs in the Outer Rim was very different from the bureaucratic nightmare of the Council worlds. Here, customs officers were more interested in learning about new technologies and cultures than in collecting taxes and enforcing regulations. She walked through the station's main corridor, marveling at how much it had changed since her last visit. The walls were lined with shops selling everything from Kythera atmospheric art to Shard collective memory crystals. Humans mixed easily with a dozen different alien species, all of them refugees or outcasts from the Council's rigid society. "Maria," a familiar voice called out. She turned to see Dr. Elena Vasquez approaching with a big smile. Elena looked older but healthier than she had during the early years of exile. "How was the run to the Spiral Edge colonies?" "Profitable and educational," Santos replied. "The settlements there are doing amazing work with quantum agriculture. They're growing crops in spaces that exist in multiple dimensions at the same time." Elena laughed. "Leave it to humans to farm in parallel universes. Come on, I'll buy you coffee and you can tell me all about it." They sat in a cafe overlooking the main plaza of the station. Below them, hundreds of beings moved through markets and gathering spaces. Children played games that mixed human sports with alien traditions. It was the kind of multicultural paradise that the Council claimed to represent, but had never actually achieved. "Elena," Santos said carefully, "I've been hearing rumors from the border regions. Council ships have been spotted near our territory." Elena's expression grew serious. "More than rumors, I'm afraid. They've been conducting long-range scans of our settlements. Admiral Torres thinks they're finally starting to realize what we've built out here." Admiral Marcus Torres was now an old man, but he still commanded the respect of every human in the Outer Rim. His fleet had grown from a few dozen ships during the exile to over 3,000 vessels of all types. More importantly, he had developed something the galaxy had never seen before. "Have you heard about the new drive system?" Santos asked. Elena nodded. "The Infinity Drive. Marcus showed me the test results last week. It's incredible. Marcus showed me the test results last week. It's incredible. The Infinity Drive was humanity's greatest technological achievement. While other species relied on hyperspace lanes controlled by the Council, humans had developed point-to-point jumping technology. They could travel instantly between any 2 points in space, regardless of hyperspace currents or established routes. The breakthrough had come from studying the energy beings in the deep void. These creatures existed partially outside normal space-time, and human scientists had learned to copy their natural abilities. It meant that human ships could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. The first operational ships are being launched next week, Elena said. Imagine being able to trade directly with species on the far side of the galaxy, or explore regions that are completely cut off from the hyperspace network. Santos felt excited but also worried. The Council isn't going to like this. They control all galactic trade through their hyperspace lane monopoly. Their conversation was interrupted by an announcement over the station's communication system. Attention all residents and visitors. High Admiral Torres will address the station in 30 minutes. Please gather in the main plaza. Elena and Santos joined the crowd gathering below. The plaza filled with thousands of beings. Humans, Kythera floating in their environmental suits, shard collective entities that looked like walking crystal sculptures, and others that Santos couldn't even identify. Admiral Torres appeared on the large display screens around the plaza. He looked tired, but determined. Behind him, Santos could see the bridge of his flagship, the Endeavor, the same ship that had led humanity into exile 20 years ago. Citizens of the Outer Rim, Torres began. Today marks the 20th anniversary of our arrival in these territories. When we came here, the Galactic Council expected us to disappear quietly into the darkness. They thought we would fade away and be forgotten. A cheer went up from the crowd. Torres smiled and continued. Instead, we have built something unprecedented. We have created a civilization based on cooperation instead of control. We have made friends with species the Council never bothered to contact. We have turned wastelands into gardens and empty space into highways. Santos looked around at the diverse crowd. Torres was right. They had accomplished something amazing. But our success has not gone unnoticed, Torres said, his expression becoming serious. Council patrol ships have been detected near our borders. Their long-range sensors are studying our colonies. They are beginning to realize that we are not the defeated refugees they expected us to become. Concerned murmurs spread through the crowd. I want to be clear about our position, Torres continued. We have no intention of attacking the Council or seeking revenge for our exile. We have built our own civilization, and we are proud of it. But we will defend ourselves if threatened. Elena grabbed Santos's arm. Look at the secondary display. Santos turned to see a tactical display showing the positions of human fleets throughout the Outer Rim. There were thousands of ships spread across hundreds of systems. Battle cruisers, carriers, support vessels, and the mysterious new ships equipped with infinity drives. We are no longer the scattered refugees who were driven from Council space, Torres announced. We are the United Outer Rim Coalition. We represent 67 different species across 400 star systems. Our population exceeds 200 million beings. Our technology surpasses anything the galaxy has seen. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. To the Council, I say this. We bear you no ill will. We wish to trade and communicate as equals. But we will never again accept the role of second-class citizens in our own galaxy. The transmission ended, leaving the plaza buzzing with excitement and nervous energy. Elena and Santos walked back to the cafe in thoughtful silence. Finally, Elena spoke. Do you think they'll leave us alone? Santos considered the question. The Council? They're not good at leaving anyone alone. They've controlled the galaxy for so long that they've forgotten how to deal with equals. Then what happens next? Santos looked out at the busy plaza, filled with species and cultures that had found freedom in the Outer Rim. I think we're about to find out if our 20 years of preparation were enough. Meanwhile, in Council space, High Arbiter Veltar stood in his private chambers, looking at intelligence reports that made his blood run cold. The humans hadn't just survived their exile, they had thrived beyond all imagination. His aide, a young Zephyrian named Keltar, nervously approached with another data pad. Sir, our border sensors have detected another anomaly. Human ships appearing in impossible locations, far from any known hyperspace route. Veltar took the report and studied it carefully. How many ships? Unknown, sir. They appeared for only a few seconds, then vanished again. Our sensors couldn't get accurate readings. Veltar felt a chill of fear. 20 years ago, the Council had exiled humanity because they were unpredictable and aggressive. Now those same traits had produced a civilization that could strike anywhere in the galaxy without warning. Send a message to the emergency council session, he ordered. Tell them we may have created something far more dangerous than we ever imagined. The great game was about to begin again. But this time, humanity held cards that no one had expected them to have. The emergency meeting began the moment the distress signals reached New Hong Kong Station. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, now the coordinator for the Outer Rim Coalition, sat at a circular table with representatives from dozens of species. The holographic display in the center of the room showed devastating images from the core worlds. 3 systems have fallen in the past week, reported Commander Jake Sullivan, his weathered face grim from years of frontier living. The attackers call themselves the Devourers. They appear to be machine intelligences of incredible sophistication. Dr. Elena Vasquez leaned forward, studying the tactical data. These aren't random attacks. There's a pattern to their movements. They're targeting specific locations, research facilities, manufacturing centers, communication hubs. The display shifted to show scenes of destruction. Massive black ships, shaped like geometric crystals, moved through space, cutting apart council vessels with beams of pure energy. On planetary surfaces, swarms of smaller machines consumed buildings and infrastructure, breaking them down into raw materials. A Kythera representative floated in its environmental suit, speaking through its chemical translator. The pattern is familiar to our historical records. The Devourers are mentioned in our oldest stories. They came from the void between galaxies long ago, seeking to consume all organized matter and energy. Rodriguez felt a chill. How long ago? 50,000 years. They attacked the galaxy once before, devastating the core worlds. Then they vanished suddenly, retreating to the outer darkness. We always wondered where they went. Dr. Sarah Kim, now the chief xenobiologist for the coalition, spoke up from her position at the table. They went to the same place we did. The Outer Rim. They've been out there all this time, watching and waiting. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. For 20 years, humanity and their allies had been building their civilization in the same region where an ancient enemy had been hiding. Why didn't we encounter them? Asked Sullivan. Maybe we did, Kim replied. Remember the energy beings we made contact with in the deep void? What if those weren't separate species, but refugees from the Devourers' first attack? Rodriguez called up another display showing the current situation in council space. Red indicators marked systems under attack or already fallen. Yellow showed systems preparing for evacuation. Green areas were shrinking rapidly. The Nixari Collective's battle algorithms are useless against them, reported Lieutenant Torres, the grandson of the old admiral. The Devourers adapt faster than their computers can calculate countermeasures. The Zephyrian fleet has lost 60% of its ships in 3 engagements. Rodriguez studied the tactical situation. The Council's military was designed for peacekeeping among civilized species. Their ships were built for intimidation and control, not for fighting an enemy that learned and evolved with every battle. Ma'am, called the communications officer. We're receiving a priority transmission from Council space. It's addressed to you personally. Rodriguez nodded. Put it through. The holographic display changed to show High Arbiter Veltar in his council chambers. The proud leader who had banished humanity 20 years ago looked desperate and exhausted. Behind him, Rodriguez could see the chaos of emergency evacuations. Captain Rodriguez, Veltar began, his voice strained. I am contacting you on behalf of the Galactic Council. We require assistance. Rodriguez kept her expression neutral, but inside, she felt a mixture of anger and satisfaction. Assistance with what? High Arbiter. The Devourers. They have returned from the void with technology far beyond our ability to counter. 3 of our core worlds have been consumed. Billions are dead or missing. Our fleets cannot stop them. Rodriguez looked around the table at her colleagues. She could see the same thoughts in all their faces. After 20 years of exile, the council was finally asking for help. "And what exactly are you asking of us?" she said carefully. Veltar's pride visibly crumbled. "We are asking the United Outer Rim Coalition to provide military assistance against the Devourer threat. We know your fleets have grown large, and your technology has advanced. We need your help to save what remains of civilized space." The room erupted in angry voices. Sullivan pounded the table. 20 years. 20 years they left us to die in the outer darkness. And now they come begging for help. A Shard Collective representative flashed angry colors through its crystalline body. "The council threw us away like garbage. Why should we save them now?" Rodriguez raised her hand for silence. "High Arbiter. You exiled us because you said we were dangerous and unpredictable. You said we were a threat to galactic civilization. What has changed?" Veltar's shoulders sagged. "Everything has changed. We were wrong about the threats facing our galaxy. We were wrong about the value of different approaches to solving problems. We were wrong about humanity." "That's not an answer," Rodriguez pressed. "What specifically do you want from us? Your ships, your strategies, your ability to adapt and improvise. The Devourers learn from every encounter. But your forces have something ours lack: unpredictability. We need warriors who can think outside established patterns." Individuality. Onum Forden 24-4. Onum 44. "We have Unpre 444. Onum 44. Dr. Vasquez spoke up. "And in return? What are you offering us?" Veltar hesitated. "What do you want?" "Recognition," Rodriguez said immediately. "Full membership in galactic civilization. Equal representation for all Outer Rim species. Open borders and free trade. An end to the hierarchy that kept us as second-class beings." "Done," Veltar replied without hesitation. "All of it. You have my word as High Arbiter." Sullivan laughed bitterly. "Your word? The same word that promised fair treatment 20 years ago?" Rodriguez held up her hand again. "High Arbiter, you'll have to excuse our skepticism. We've learned to be cautious about council promises." She looked around the table at her colleagues. "I need to discuss this with the coalition leadership. We'll give you our answer within 24 hours. The transmission ended, leaving the room in heated debate. "We should leave them to face the consequences of their arrogance," argued a Kythera representative. "But if the Devourers consume the core worlds, how long before they turn their attention to us?" countered Dr. Kim. Sullivan was pacing angrily. "They threw us away when they didn't need us. Now they come crying for help when their perfect system fails." Rodriguez listened to the arguments, but her mind was already made up. She thought about Admiral Torres and the principles he had taught them all. She thought about the children growing up in the Outer Rim colonies, and what kind of galaxy they would inherit. "Enough," she said finally. "I know what we have to do." The room fell silent. "We're not them," Rodriguez continued. "We don't abandon people to die just because they treated us badly. We don't let pride get in the way of doing what's right." She stood up and activated the communication system. "All Coalition fleets, this is Captain Rodriguez. Prepare for immediate deployment to Council space. We have a galaxy to save." Sullivan stared at her. "Are you serious?" Rodriguez smiled grimly. "They threw us into the darkness expecting us to die. Instead, we became exactly what the galaxy needed. People who could survive anything and still choose to help others." She looked at the tactical display showing the Devourer advance. "Besides, those machines have been hiding in our neighborhood for 20 years. This isn't just the Council's fight anymore. It's ours." Dr. Vasquez nodded slowly. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow," Rodriguez replied. "Time to show the galaxy what 20 years in the Outer Rim taught us about fighting impossible odds." The Coalition fleet began preparing for its first major military operation. After 20 years of exile, humanity and its allies were finally going home. But they were returning as saviors, not as the refugees they had once been. Commander Sarah Kim stood on the bridge of the Coalition flagship New Horizon as the combined fleet emerged from hyperspace above the besieged Nexari capital world. What she saw made her catch her breath. The planet was surrounded by a swarm of black geometric ships that moved like a living cloud. Devourer vessels cut through the remaining Council defenses with surgical precision, their energy weapons carving apart cruisers and battle stations. On the planet's surface, columns of smoke rose from burning cities. "Fleet status report," Kim called out. "All Coalition forces present and accounted for," replied her tactical officer. 3,000 ships from 47 different species. The Cathera atmospheric fleet is maintaining formation. Shard collective battle groups are ready for close engagement. Human vessels report all systems operational. Kim studied the tactical display. The enemy had over 10,000 ships, but they were designed for overwhelming civilized fleets, not for fighting the chaotic mix of technologies and strategies that the Outer Rim had developed. "Open a channel to all fleet commanders," she ordered. The bridge's main display showed dozens of faces representing the Coalition's diverse alliance. Admiral Torres appeared from his command ship. Now 90 years old, but still sharp, Captain Rodriguez coordinated from the mobile command center. Dr. Vasquez commanded a group of converted research vessels that had been equipped with experimental weapons. "All units," Kim announced. "Remember the plan. We're not here to match them ship for ship. We're here to be unpredictable. Make them react instead of adapt." She turned to her communications officer. "Signal the first phase. Cathera units, you're clear for atmospheric insertion." The strangest part of the Coalition fleet suddenly shifted formation. Dozens of bubble-shaped ships filled with swirling gas began diving toward the planet. To outside observers, it looked like suicide. The Cathera vessels appeared fragile compared to the armored warships around them, but appearances were deceiving. The Cathera ships passed through the Devourer energy shields like they weren't there. Their gas-based technology operated on completely different principles than solid matter defenses. While the Devourers tried to understand what had happened, Cathera forces were already disrupting their ground operations. "Phase 2, Kim ordered. "Shard Collective, engage enemy flanks." The crystalline warriors of the Shard Collective moved like living diamonds through space. Their ships could reshape themselves during battle, changing from sleek fighters to massive battering rams in seconds. When Devourer weapons hit them, the crystal absorbed the energy and redirected it back at the attackers. The enemy formation began to waver. They were designed to learn from encounters with traditional ship designs and weapons, but every Coalition vessel operated differently. Human ships used adaptive algorithms that changed tactics every few minutes. Cathera technology was completely beyond their experience. Shard collective vessels defied their understanding of matter and energy. "Admiral Torres," Kim called out. "You're clear for the main assault." The old admiral smiled on the display. "All human units, advance. Remember, be creative." The human fleet moved forward in what looked like complete chaos. Ships broke formation and attacked from unexpected angles. Some vessels disappeared and reappeared behind enemy lines using the Infinity Drive. Others released clouds of repair drones that swarmed over Devourer ships, not to attack them but to rewire their systems. Kim watched one human cruiser ram straight into a Devourer command ship. Just before impact, it activated an experimental device that swapped the positions of the two vessels. Suddenly, the Devourer ship was moving at ramming speed toward its own fleet, while the human cruiser appeared safely behind them. "Ma'am," called the sensor operator. "The enemy is adapting faster than expected. They're beginning to counter our unconventional tactics." Kim nodded. She had expected this. "All units, initiate Protocol Omega. Time to show them something they've never seen before." What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations. The entire Coalition fleet suddenly stopped fighting and began broadcasting in harmony. Thousands of ships transmitted mathematical proofs, philosophical arguments, poetry, music, and pure random noise, all at the same time. The Devourers, designed to learn and adapt, tried to process the overwhelming flood of information. Their collective intelligence, which had easily handled the ordered tactics of council fleets, found itself drowning in data that seemed to have no pattern or purpose. "It's working," reported Dr. Vasquez from her research vessel. "Their response time is dropping. They're spending too much processing power trying to understand our transmissions." Kim activated the fleet communication system. "All units, this is New Horizon. The enemy is vulnerable. Execute final phase." What followed wasn't a battle in any traditional sense. It was more like a cosmic performance where thousands of different species worked together as one. Human ships provided coordination and unpredictability. Kythera vessels moved through impossible spaces. Shard collective warriors struck with crystalline precision. Energy beings from the deep void appeared to drain power directly from Devourer systems. Commander Kim found herself thinking about the Council's old fears. They had worried about humanity being too aggressive, too unpredictable, too willing to challenge authority. But here in the depths of space, those same traits were saving the galaxy. "Enemy command ship identified," called out the tactical officer. "It's the large pyramid structure at the center of their formation." Kim studied the target. It was massive, easily the size of a small moon, and protected by layers of shields and armor that should have been impenetrable. "Open a channel to the Infinity Drive Squadron," she ordered. Captain Lisa Santos appeared on the display, sitting in the cockpit of one of the new experimental ships. "Ready for whatever crazy plan you have, Commander. I need you to put a ship inside that command vessel, not docked with it, inside it," Santos grinned. "Now that's the kind of impossible mission I joined this fleet for. Give me 2 minutes." Kim watched as Santos's ship disappeared from normal space. The Infinity Drive allowed travel between any 2 points, but using it to materialize inside an enemy vessel was so dangerous, it had never been attempted in combat. 2 minutes later, massive explosions erupted throughout the Devourer command ship. Santos had somehow navigated inside its shields and armor, then used the ship's self-destruct to destroy the enemy's central intelligence. Without their command structure, the remaining Devourer ships began to drift aimlessly. Some tried to retreat toward the outer void, but coalition forces were already moving to intercept them. "All enemy vessels neutralized or retreating," reported the tactical officer. "Coalition forces are reporting minimal casualties." Kim slumped in her command chair, exhausted but victorious. Around her, the bridge crew began to cheer. Through the viewports, she could see the planet below, scarred, but alive. "Open a channel to the Nexari capital," she ordered. The transmission showed the interior of what had once been the Nexari command center. The insect-like beings looked stunned by their sudden rescue. "This is Commander Kim of the United Outer Rim Coalition. The immediate threat has been neutralized. We're standing by to provide assistance with recovery operations." The response was barely a whisper. We don't understand. You came to save us." After everything that happened, Kim felt the weight of 20 years settling on her shoulders. "We came because it was the right thing to do. Because that's who we choose to be." 3 months later, Ambassador Sarah Chen, now elderly but still sharp, stood before the reformed Galactic Assembly. The old council chambers had been destroyed during the Devourer attack. The new meeting place was built on principles of equality rather than hierarchy. The assembly included representatives from every species in the galaxy, not just the powerful core world civilizations. Humans sat beside Kythera, Shard collective entities worked with Nexari technicians, and dozens of species that had been ignored by the old council finally had voices in galactic affairs. High Arbiter Veltar, his authority much reduced but his wisdom increased, addressed the assembly. "The Outer Rim Coalition's actions during the Devourer crisis have proven beyond doubt that diversity is our galaxy's greatest strength. The old ways of rigid hierarchy and controlled growth nearly led to our destruction. Only by embracing different approaches to problems could we find solutions." Chen stood to address the assembly. 20 years ago, you exiled us because you feared our unpredictability. You saw our willingness to challenge authority as a threat to civilization." She looked around the diverse gathering. But civilization isn't about maintaining order at any cost. True civilization is about growing together, learning from each other, and helping those in need. The galaxy we're building now, with representatives from hundreds of species, is stronger than anything the Old Council ever created. Veltar nodded slowly. The exile of humanity was meant to preserve our way of life. Instead, it created a better way of life for everyone. Chen smiled. Exile gave us the freedom to become who we were meant to be. It gave the galaxy the diversity it needed to survive. Sometimes what looks like punishment becomes the greatest gift. The Assembly voted unanimously to establish the new Galactic Federation, with equal representation for all member species and open borders for trade and exploration. The Outer Rim territories, once considered worthless wasteland, became the foundation for a civilization that stretched beyond the galaxy itself. Admiral Torres, now retired but still honored as the architect of humanity's survival, watched the proceedings from his home on Kepler 442c. The world that had once been considered impossible to live on now hosted millions of beings from dozens of species. His great-granddaughter came to sit beside him on the porch overlooking the sunset city. "Grandpa," she asked, "do you think things would have been different if the Council had never exiled us?" Torres considered the question while watching ships of all shapes and sizes move through the colorful sky above them. Human vessels flew alongside Kithra atmospheric craft and shard collective formations. "We would have stayed small," he said finally, "controlled, limited to what the Council thought we should become. The exile forced us to discover what we could really accomplish." He put his arm around his great-granddaughter. "Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened. The Council thought they were throwing us away. Instead, they set us free to save the galaxy." The stars above them were no longer divided between core and rim, civilized and wild. They were one galaxy, united by the lessons learned in the outer darkness and the courage to help others despite past wrongs. Humanity had finally found their place among the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as the bridge between what was and what could be.